One of my previous lives, I was a public servant, a prosecutor, which for me was about protecting people who needed protection.
My very first pro bono client, I was actually a summer clerk. I was still in law school.
I was referred to an elderly lady who lived in a very poor neighborhood, and her house was effectively the soup kitchen for the neighborhood.
My wife and I were having dinner, and a young man came up to me. He said, "Hello, Mr. Griffin. You don't recognize me, do you?"
At Butler Snow, I've been able to provide assistance, counsel, guidance to some very wonderful, very strong people who are victims of sexual assault.
I had a woman come into the office whose husband had left her. He had been evading the IRS, and she had no knowledge of this. Eventually, the IRS came after her for back taxes, and she could not afford to pay them. She could not afford to pay us.
She would take in anybody that was hungry and she would feed them. And she didn't really have a whole lot of means herself. Well, one of the people that she helped stole her identity and racked up a whole bunch of debt on credit cards in her name. And the credit cards were coming to collect on that, and they were threatening, frankly, to foreclose on her house, the only asset she really had.
He said, "When I was much younger, my mama brought me to you when I got in trouble, and you worked with me, and you took care of me and got me out of trouble." He said, "Now I've got a good job, got a family, and I think that's all because you talked to me, you went to court with me, and you got me out of trouble." That was a case I handled for free because his mother could not afford to pay me. That's why I do pro bono cases, to pay it forward.
We filed for innocent spouse. She never paid a fee to us, and it went to the IRS, and I didn't hear anything for a couple of years. Actually, the very day that I finished the bar exam, I got a phone call saying, "We won. The IRS has backed off, and they are not going to ask her to pay these taxes because they were not her fault. She had nothing to do with them." And that was the moment when I realized becoming a lawyer was going to be the best career decision I've ever made in my life.
And at the end of the day, when the credit card companies found out who she was and what had happened, they dismissed their claims against her, and in fact, they gave her money to help out those in the neighborhood. So that's one of those instances where the pro bono impact was not only on the client that we represented, but on the entire neighborhood and that community to allow that person to continue to feed the hungry around her.
Been able to give to them counsel about how to approach their cases, work with sometimes attorneys that they've already engaged. In order to do that, and in order to empower them and give these wonderful people strength and give them closure, it's a gift for them, but I think it's maybe even more of a gift for me.
I serve as pro bono counsel for CASA of Hancock County. CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates, and what we do at CASA is we are the eyes and the ears for the children of Hancock County.
If you're working a casino, you need to have a work permit, which means you have to fill out applications, be fingerprinted, and be qualified.